I'll be demonstrating how to construct a thumb once you have increase for the thumb gusset. I have here a nice larger size model of my reciprocation fingerless gloves. It has the same stitch count on it as that pattern, but actually this technique will work with any type of a thumb that has a full-fashioned thumb gusset. So here I have 20 stitches that have been resting on a holder that I increased, and the first thing I'm going to do is take them off of the holder and divide them onto 2 double-pointed needles. So I'll just divide them evenly and put half of them onto one double point needle and the other half onto another. So here I have 10 stitches, and this will be needle number 1. And I will take a second double pointed needle and I will slide the rest of the stitches off of the holder and onto another double pointed needle, and that will then be needle number 2. So now I'm going to be, once these are all divided, here we go, and we have 10 stitches on needle 1, 10 stitches on needle 2. So the next part is I am going to take a third double point needle, and I need to pick up stitches above the thumb increase or the thumb gusset area to join a nice round circle and make my thumb. The problem with thumbs is that we often get a hole or a gap in this area, which I call the ditch. That is the area between these lower increase stitches, and here is the 4 backward loop cast-on stitches. What I like to do to minimize the gap or hole problem is to pick up one stitch in each ditch, the left ditch and the right ditch, and then when I am on my first round of knitting, I will decrease them to close up any of those gaps and minimize the hole problem. So I have marked the stitches where I'm going to pick them up in pink to make it a little bit easier for you to see. So after I have loaded up needle number 2, I'm going to take my third double point needle and I'm going to pick up one stitch in the left ditch, and then above the opening you can see that these are my 4 backward loop cast-on stitches. You can see each one above there's a knit stitch and it makes a V. I'll show you the whole V. I'll pick that up. There's the V right there. But I'm going to concern myself with the pink colored side of the knit stitch, or the right leg, and that's the one I'm going to pick up. So I skip that left side of the V of that first knit stitch, and I'm going to pick up one. Here I am to the second knit stitch, pick up the right leg of that V. It's the guy that's pink. Here I am at the third one, pick up the right leg of that third stitch, and here I am to the last backwards loop cast on stitch, and I'm going to pick up the right leg of that one. So now on my third needle I have one ditch stitch, 4 backward loop cast on stitches, and it leaves me with one more ditch stitch to pick up. I'm going to turn this to the side so that you can see what it looks like from the side, and it really is this loop here in between the first needle and the last needle. Pick that last ditch stitch up, and there you have it. So I now have 10 stitches on needle 1, 10 stitches on needle 2, and I have 6 stitches on needle 3. So now it is time to join my yarn and start knitting in the round. I'm going to start here at needle 1 with the first stitch. And another trick that I like to do with my thumbs is to leave a nice long tail when I join my yarn, so that I can use that tail to cast on, not to cast on, but to close any gaps you may have left. So I'm going to join my yarn and go ahead and start knitting these 10 stitches. being very careful that you don't knit with your tail, because that will spoil all of the work that you've just done. So I'm going to go and knit away on these 10 stitches. And as I said earlier, this technique will work with any pattern. I like to go ahead and just knit the increased stitches, but then I'm going to decrease, and you'll see in just a minute when I get there. Okay, so I've knit needle number 1, emptied that needle, and now I will use that to knit needle number 2. Grab my working yarn and keep knitting. Always seems to take a long time when someone's waiting for you to knit these 10 stitches, but we're almost there. So I keep knitting with double points. I always empty one needle onto another. Alright, so now I've finished knitting with needle 2. Now it's time to knit on needle 3, and this is where I do my decreases so that I'm going to close up those gaps that were created. So all I need to do is I'm going to knit that ditch stitch together with my first of my former backward loop cast on stitches. So go ahead and knit that. I try to knit that as tightly as I can. And the curious thing about knitting is when I go to knit this next stitch, when I really tug on that, that will help close this stitch up. If you have an eagle eye, you'll see that these stitches now, when we come around, now that we're looking at them from another direction, they do seem to be twisted, and they are, but that's all right. Just go ahead and knit them as you see them, giving a nice firm tug, and that will help to keep them tight. So I knit 1, now I will knit 2, and I'm left with my last 2 stitches, which is my last backward loop cast on and my last ditch stitch. So I'm going to knit those 2 together. And now I am finished knitting with needle number 3. So it now has 4 stitches on it. So I am down to 24 stitches. And making sure again I don't knit with my tail, I'm going to go ahead and just keep knitting in the round, starting back again at needle number 1. And once I keep going around and around, I'll stop when my thumb reaches the desired height. And I'll go ahead and knit another stitch here, and we can begin to see what our work looks like. Here we have closed up the gap nicely here on the right side of our thumb, and same thing on the left side of our thumb. And we're ready to continue and make a beautiful fingerless glove. I hope this helps. Happy knitting!